It's become one of the region's biggest bragging rights. The thriving tech sector, centered in Boston and Cambridge, is giving Silicon Valley a run for its money. But there's one difference between Massachusetts and California that some say puts our innovation economy at a disadvantage. Here, we allow non-compete agreements preventing employees from jumping ship to take a job at a rival company. Well, today, Governor Patrick introduced legislation banning non-competes, and he explained the timing of the move and addressed its critics on Boston Public Radio.
This has been on the legislative agenda for at least the 8 years I've been around. It's been proposed by any number of legislators in the past. I have spoken to it in the past and expressed my support, at least once I did my homework about it. There is some resistance to it, you should know, in the tech community. Not as much as there has been in the past, but there has historically been some resistance to it. And I think an important answer to that resistance is our passing something called the Uniform Trade Secrets Act, which basically bulks up our existing protections against the sharing of trade secrets and intellectual property.
Here to discuss the pros and cons of doing away with non-compete agreements is Galen Moore. He's the newly named editor-in-chief of Bostino. Thanks for joining us, Galen. How prevalent is this in your business, these non-competes?
I don't think they are terribly widely used, but there are a number of companies that use them, most famously probably EMC, which is probably the largest tech employer in Massachusetts. But there are a number of other small shops that employ them. The Small Business Association of New England, SBANE, has come out in favor of non-competes, and they say they represent the many government contract shops that do IT or design of mechanical engineering, electrical engineering for the military, for government. They have trade secrets to protect. If somebody can hire their best engineer away from them with a higher salary, then where are they left when it's a four-person shop?
What is the time frame on this? Is there a uniform? Well, you can't compete. You can leave your job, but you can't take another job with 6 months, a year. What is the normal range?
Yeah, I think anywhere from 6 months to a year to 2 years.
Really?
Yeah, and you say you can't take a job in the same industry. Where it really hits on innovation, I think, is when you have people who are working in a company, they have an idea for a startup, they've seen an industry from the inside. Let's say they work at IBM in Massachusetts. They've seen a pain point that customers have that IBM isn't really that interested in solving, but they think they can go make it go. Maybe they've got some savings, they're mid-career. That's a sort of a classic vision of a business-to-business entrepreneur. So where can that person go and do that when they've signed a non-compete that locks them up for 2 years? How can they raise venture funding when the venture capitalists are saying, I don't know, we could be sued over this? So it limits mobility from company to company, but it also limits that mobility of, can I go out and start my own thing using what I've learned and what I know about this industry from the company I work for.
All right, let's bring C.A. Webb into the discussion. She's the executive director of the New England Venture Capital Association. So non-competes help prevent employees from taking, intellectual property, from one business to the other. Would Governor Deval Patrick's legislation prevent that? I don't see how that's possible.
So here's the reality. Non-disclosure agreements, non-solicitation agreements are enforceable and are effective. Non-competes are actually not necessary, but they're actually very widely used at really itty-bitty tech companies and certainly at all the behemoths around Massachusetts. And they scare employees, they scare investors, they have a chilling effect and prevent innovation.
I was saying before we started recording here that it used to be applied universally in the television business. I mean, Chet and Natalie and Bob Lobel and Joyce Kohaywick and all the big names back in the 80s had these things, and it was shot down by the courts. I was shocked to learn that it's still in existence in any industry.
I don't think it goes to the court. It doesn't go to a lawsuit very often. But there is a kind of a chilling effect where you have people saying, oh, no, we can't hire you because you've got this hanging over your head, or you can't do this. Or even somebody saying, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I mean, one of the great things about any startup ecosystem is having large employers that spin out startups. People leave, they take their stock options, they invest in starting a new company. sometimes you don't see, I think there's a criticism against Massachusetts. You don't see that happen here. How many startups have you seen come out of EMC, for example?
I have no idea.
But one of the most persuasive pieces of evidence to the contrary is actually Colin Engel and the team at iRobot decided not to enforce non-competes. Right. And we now have a $4 billion robotics cluster here in Massachusetts because of it that's sprung up in a relatively short time. We could see that in many other parts of the tech sector if EMC and other companies would let go of non-competes and believe in their own company culture, believe that they can retain people because they build great cultures that people want to work in.
So that's an example of somebody who said, oh, we don't really need it. But are most of the companies that endorse it, are they fearful? Or are they just... They want to protect. I mean, I understand. You hire somebody who's really good, really talented. They're working for you, and suddenly they get a better job offer. I mean, that's tough. You got to start all over with somebody from scratch and all that.
Yeah, it is that. And I think, we've had entrepreneurs in the community say this week, Paul English, who's one of the co-founders of Kayak and now an investor in town, he said, this is about companies that aren't confident in their own ability to build a great company that people want to work for. They use it as a form of enslavement would be a strong term, but some people would call it that.
Is this a law that's going to go through, do you think? I mean, as Governor Patrick said, it's been introduced a dozen times anyway, or 8 times at least over the past decade.
There is real energy that's pointing to this being possible to push through. The bill is a really smart bill. There are many interesting pieces of it that I know Galen would like to speak to as well. But here's the problem. Legislators are scared. They have been talked to up and down by lobbyists from EMC and Covidien and Boston Scientific and other big companies who have put the fear of God in them that those companies will pick up and leave Massachusetts. They won't build their next facility here. And the legislators turn to us and say, we understand the jobs come from your sector. Most of the jobs in Massachusetts are coming from early stage companies, from small business, but we're really scared to piss off these big companies.
So it's not going to pass.
No, we think it will pass, but we're rallying our troops. So go to noncompete.co and email your legislator, email your senator, and tell them that we stand together in needing non-competes to go so that we can drive more innovation here, more jobs here in Massachusetts.
It's really hard to find anybody who'll come out publicly and say non-competes are a great idea. There's a handful. SBAIN that I mentioned earlier is one of them. But I don't think you find many legislators saying we're going to go against this non-compete reform. But behind the scenes, you may find them, doing the bidding of their lobbyists.
All right, good issue. C.A. Webb and Galen Moore, thanks so much.